Hello and welcome to Retro Racing Reviews. Now, go easy on me here because this is my first attempt at doing an online video. So this is basically just for reviewing old racing games and racing games with old cars in them. As you can see, I've chosen to jump onto rFactor with one of their many modifications to take you back through Grand Prix history. So I'm driving Nigel Mansell's 1991 vintage Williams FW14 with a Renault engine. Actually a decent one this time rather than whatever they're peddling for Red Bull this year. Playing around with some of the camera angles as well, which rFactor allows you to do while reviewing their replays, which is going to be quite handy because I intend to do a few videos showcasing some of the better mods for historic Grand Prix cars. It's the best way of driving these if you well, unless you don't want to have a little trip across the grass instead. Yep, you'll see from this that I'm a casual but enthusiastic racer, probably at best, although I'm not casting myself in the best light by spinning around on the grass like an idiot. So as I get back onto the road and try and chase down the field, I'm using the Logitech G29 steering wheel. Bought that in preference to the G27 simply because it's a bit newer and probably won't be outdated by Logitech's lack of updates. Although it is quite hard to get to work with Codemasters games currently, which I'll come to in a later show when I try and review one of their F1 games. Now the TV camera shows you the nice sweep of the old section of Silverstone. This is the version before they had a significant reworking of the track a few years ago. So we've still got the old pit box over there and the old start-finish line. Again, it gets better. I promise I actually do get better at this as we go forward. So as I'm trying to chase down the class of '91 with Riccardo Patrese stuck at the next to last of the field. The G27 I found is it's a nice steering wheel. It's got a good weight and heft to it. I'm using the semi-automatic paddle shifting transmission because that's what Nigel Mansell and Patrese would have had in 1991 with the Williams Renault. Semi-automatic gearboxes came in 1989, and Nigel actually won the first race for the technology, as I missed the enormous pile-up, winning the 1989 Brazilian Grand Prix in his Ferrari. So this is very much the earliest examples of the technology coming through. So for the most part, the stuff that's coming into road cars more and more now was pioneered in Grand Prix racing at the very late 80s and start of the 90s. rFactor is, as far as I'm concerned, an absolutely fantastic example of a racing game, and sort of the gold standard for sim racing. I know there are other sim racers out there, iRacing, Sim Race World and the like, and I'll be getting to those in future episodes. Somewhat from a historical perspective, because primarily this is designed to focus on some of the old classics, so your Mario Karts, rock and roll racing, all the sorts of things that you saw on the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive, the early days of PC gaming. So for my second review, I'll probably be jumping back into the Jeff Crammond games. So the original Formula 1, and then Grand Prix 2, 3 and 4 in due course. That's basically what I started out with at the time. This comes from about the cars that you see here come from about the time that I really started to get into Grand Prix racing as a sort of 9-10-year-old. You'll see I overtook the Jordan that was sitting on the grass there, one of the first Jordan Grand Prix cars, and by far and away the nicest looking. As I'm pulling out braking manoeuvres, which I probably wouldn't get away with in real life, to be quite honest. But overall, as I carved my way through the field, I have to say that with the AI on quite quite an aggressive setting, they will cut you up and chop across you, and generally act like a bunch of hooligans. I think they probably modelled it off when Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa decided to crash into each other all those times a few years ago. Not either gentleman's finest hour, I will say, but as you'll see, I'm coming through Copse Corner, one of the fastest tracks on the Grand Prix calendar. Not as fast as Eau Rouge or the Pirotella at Monza, but pretty quick nonetheless. Going through the complex at Beckett's and Maggots, that's a really nice left-right switchback if you can get it spot on. Gives you a good run down the Hanger Straight if you get it right. Obviously that was where Nige overtook Nelson Piquet in 1987 at the end of Hanger Straight to win the race. Classic case of selling somebody the dummy and then getting them on the outbreak into Stowe. Up the Abbey Straight, we now come to the Abbey Chicane, which was a modification to the track in the 1990s to slow the cars down. As you come under the bridge and through Bridge Corner, really quick through here, about a fourth gear, 120-30 mile an hour corner, before coming into the complex as it once was. As you get to here, we're now back on the circuit that the modern Grand Prix cars use, and you'll probably be familiar with coming out of the final corner before heading back out onto what was the start-finish straight for the Grand Prix cars. In my opinion, the old track definitely had it over the modern version, but to be honest, the facilities did need an upgrade if we were going to keep the British Grand Prix where it was. Once again, having caught up with the leaders, I decided to throw the car off the road repeatedly. In terms of my pedigree as such, don't really have any. The only thing I share is the same name as the guy who does the Grand Prix commentary, but we're not one and the same. You can probably tell by the voice. But if for whatever reason he is listening and has any pointers, I'd be delighted to get some. Going through this complex at the Vale, the only time I've been to the British Grand Prix, I was standing just off to the left in the spectators area. Really good view through all of those corners, and does really give you as much exposure time to the cars as you can. Otherwise, they will just whiz past you as quickly as they can. Places like Monaco, you literally only get to see maybe a corner if you're lucky, and then a little bit of the connecting straight before or afterwards. Whereas Silverstone, because it's a former airfield, nice and flat, big wide areas to view from, and yes, it's one of the better spectator tracks for Grand Prix racing. And like I said before, long may it stay on the calendar. Now, coming into roughly the midway point of the race, I'm starting to chase down on the leaders. In terms of the handling model of the car, and certainly with a lot of these F1 mods, you'll tend to find if you get your braking done in good time, pitch the car in and get it to settle, as you'll see I did there on the apex of that part of the complex, you can get a really good run out of the corner, whereas you'll see I've been previously running quite wide on some occasions, which does a little bit like that, although I was half thinking about an out-braking move. Running wide does tend to leave you quite exposed on the dirty side of the track. Now I know that rFactor 2 is purporting to have a far more in-depth experience, so I don't know. Maybe somebody could enlighten me as to how far they go with putting different track conditions in on different parts of the circuit. But normally in Grand Prix racing, simply because their tyres are designed to wear out quicker than most other forms of motorsport, you'll get little balls of rubber. They're called marbles in the trade, and they'll build up along with all the dust and the dirt and the gravel from spinning cars out on the extremities of the racetrack. Now, it's why you don't see sometimes a lot of overtaking when you're thinking there's plenty of road. Why can't they just go ahead and do the overtake? The main reason is trying to get the car stopped safely to complete the manoeuvre. It's very difficult simply because the marbles and the like provide very little grip compared to the racing line. A lot of games you'll see that the racing line is a little bit darker. It's a different colour to the rest of the track, and that's because they'll show it as you'd see it on TV when it's properly rubbered in, because the rest of the rubber that doesn't get cast off as marbles will actually go onto the track as part of the track surface, at least temporarily, and will give you more grip. That's why when you see the cars coming out after a wet session's happened, you'll find their lap times are maybe a second or two down to start off with before the track rubbers back in, because the rain will wash away all of the helpful rubber that's been laid down previous to that. Also, circuits that don't get used very often. So probably your best examples are the sort of more modern tracks in places like Dubai. Your classic the sort of Yas Marina circuit, which is a very popular track, but it will be sort of dirtier and dustier than normal, just because of the fact it's not used as often as a purpose-built racetrack like Silverstone. It's one of those ones where to get a World Championship winning car, like the Williams FW14 turned out to be in its B configuration, you need to essentially have a car that will work on all types of track. One of the reasons for the FW14's success, winning the number of races it did across the 2 seasons it was in the mix, primarily boiled down to the fact that you have Adrian Newey, remember him? As you might recall him from such championship-winning teams as Red Bull and McLaren Mercedes. He started out designing the March cars, which became Leighton House as we went into the 90s, before getting a job at Williams to develop the FW14. Adrian Newey's cars, once upon a time, only really came into their own on a nice smooth track where the aerodynamics could really come into their own, and they weren't disrupted by changes in road surface and the like. This was a problem because a lot of Grand Prix tracks at the time weren't up to the same standards as today. A lot of them were quite old, historic tracks, mostly around Europe. So what really made Newey's designs come of age was pairing them with Williams' active suspension system. The idea being that you could leave the car, you could leave the suspension to sort out keeping the car straight and level. So whilst it coped with the bumps, Adrian Newey could design a very aerodynamically aggressive car, knowing that the suspension would keep it in peak condition at most of the time. You didn't have the full-on raised noses that we see today, up until the last year or two anyway. The Williams has a slightly elevated nose, but nothing like the, say for example, the Benetton or the Tyrrell. The raised nose was actually brought in by Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite at Tyrrell early in the 1990 season, and rapidly became very popular and helped Jean Lazy become the star he was during the 90s, purely off of the back of that season he had for Tyrrell in 1990. So this year, 91, was really a sort of a hybrid year. A lot of people use the low noses, or noses that were only very slightly raised. So the Ferrari, for example, was a classic sort of low nose design this year. But overall, the Williams was a aerodynamically superb, had a very good active suspension system, better than anything else that was out there at the time. A fully functional and reliable semi-automatic gearbox, and in Nigel Mansell, I think one of the best drivers of his generation. And given the fact that included Piquet, Senna, and Prost, it's pretty illustrious company he was in. In the early stages of Williams developing the active car, it did require a lot to haul this thing around the track, which is probably why, as the design got faster and faster, and was sort of honed into the 1992 model, Nigel was able to steal a march on Riccardo Patrese because he was physically more powerful and was able to wring the most out of the car. Although he didn't do a very good job there. Sorry, Nigel. As I run off the road at the Abbey chicane. Now, I've dropped the rest of the field, and I think in retrospect I could have done with, well, not being terrible at the start, but also with dialing up the AI difficulty. It's set on 85% currently, so I think going forward, because I ended up winning this race by about half a minute or so, hence I've stopped cutting back to the rear-facing camera. It's just really a case of trying to find that sweet spot where I can get some good dices going in without leaving me struggling to catch the computer cars. If I wanted to struggle to catch people, I'd go and drive project cars online, because quite frankly, I don't know how some of those people pedal those things that fast. Going through now, I'll shortly be cutting back to the pits in the end of the video. But hope that was a relatively fun, entertaining look at rFactor, the history of the Williams Renault FW14, and the years it was racing. A little bit about how I got into watching motorsport, and when we reconvene in the next video, it'll be for something a little bit more classic. So we're probably looking at a sort of a Mario Kart or a Jeff Cranman's Grand Prix, so I can really start to delve into the history of things like Mode 7 graphics, if anybody remembers that. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully catch you again for the next episode. Thanks, bye.